Tonight, we are going back to Greece 2007 to the little school above the sea on the final afternoon before summer. The last lesson is ending. The windows are open, the rain is passing over the olive trees, and soon the classroom will be empty for the long holiday. So get comfortable, let the afternoon unfold slowly, and for the next little while, there is nowhere else you need to be. The final mathematics lesson of the school year was slowly coming to an end. The classroom was warm, but not unbearably so. A ceiling fan turned above the children, doing little more than moving the afternoon air from one side of the room to the other. Beyond the open windows, the Mediterranean stretched blue beneath the hills. The school stood slightly above the village, where the road became narrow and the houses gave way to olive trees. It was an old building, whitewashed walls, blue shutters, a long veranda connecting the classrooms. Inside, the desks were made of dark wood, their surfaces carrying years of pencil marks and tiny scratches. It was 2007, but the classroom still had the quiet feeling of another time. There was a computer in the office, a television in the staff room, a few mobile phones in the teachers' bags, but here the important things remained simple: a blackboard, chalk, paper, books, and the old school bell hanging near the entrance. Her blue school bag rested beneath her desk. Her mathematics notebook was open. The final problem had already been solved. She had been staring at it for nearly 5 minutes. Across the room, several other students were doing the same thing, pretending to work, waiting for the clock. The hands seemed unusually slow today. Mrs. Sophia stood at the blackboard. The chalk moved across the board in small white lines. The final lesson continued. Outside, the sound was so familiar that Elena hardly noticed it anymore. And tomorrow, summer would officially begin. No more early mornings, no uniforms, no mathematics, no notebooks waiting on the kitchen table. 3 months stretched ahead. At 13, 3 months seemed almost infinite. Elena looked at the clock again. 10 minutes, then perhaps 9. She turned toward the window. The sea was still bright, but the sunlight had begun to change. A shadow was moving across the hills. The change was so gradual that nobody noticed at first. Then the room became darker. Mrs. Sophia paused. The chalk remained in her hand. Elena looked outside. A large grey cloud had settled over the distant hills. The sea had lost its brightness. The wind had changed too. It came from the coast now, cooler than before. One drop landed on the windowsill. Elena watched it disappear, then another. A boy near the front looked toward the window. Someone whispered that it was going to rain. Within a minute, everyone had noticed. The first shower arrived gently. The children stopped pretending to work. Rain darkened the dusty schoolyard. The olive trees moved in the wind. Water gathered along the edge of the basketball court. The white walls slowly became darker where rain touched them. The smell entered in the classroom almost immediately. Wet earth, warm stone, leaves and dust, a little salt from the sea. Elena breathed it in. She had smelled rain. She had smelled rain many times, but the first summer shower always seemed different. It carried the feeling of something beginning. Mrs. Sophia looked at the clock. The final lesson had only a few minutes left. She placed the chalk down. Nobody complained when she decided there was no need to finish the final exercise. The year was already over. For several minutes, the classroom became unusually peaceful. No one was talking. The rain was enough. Elena watched water run down the window. The little courtyard beyond it was changing. The dust had disappeared. The stone had become dark. Tiny streams were moving toward the drain. The olive leaves shone. Everything looked freshly washed. Then slowly, the rain began to weaken. The clouds moved toward the sea. A pale patch of sunlight appeared over the hills. Mrs. Sophia stood beside her desk. She looked around the room. The children looked back. Nobody said it, but everyone knew this was the last few minutes. She smiled. Then the old bell rang. The room changed immediately. Voices filled the corridor. There were plans for beaches, trips, grandparents, long evenings, sleepovers. Someone had already arranged to meet friends at the village square. Another student was going to his family's house on an island. The children spoke with the confidence of people who believed every promise made that afternoon would last all summer. Elena packed her things. She put her notebook into the blue school bag. Then she looked around. Several children were already leaving. One by one, the sounds disappeared. The classroom became quieter. Elena remained. Mrs. Sophia had asked her to stay and help with the final preparations. Every year, the school was gently put away before the holiday. It was almost a ritual, not an official one, just something teachers had always done. The first thing to disappear was the artwork. Elena began with the drawing beside the windows. There were boats, houses, mountains, flowers, and football field, a strange blue animal, and one picture of the school itself. Elena stopped. It was hers. She had drawn it during the spring. The white school building stood beneath an olive tree. Beneath it, it was a sea. Small figures sat beneath the branches. She had forgotten about it. The paper had curled slightly from the humidity. Mrs. Sophia looked over. She seemed to like it. Elena placed the drawing carefully on the teacher's desk. The walls were slowly becoming empty. The little classroom plant stood near the window. Its leaves were still covered with tiny drops of the rain. For a moment, Elena watched the leaves move in the breeze. The classroom was becoming quieter by the minute. The sun came back. not as brightly as before. The afternoon had softened, the wet courtyard reflected the light. Elena wiped the teacher's desk. There were only a few things left. Mrs. Sophia brought it closer. Elena had seen the box before, but never opened it. It was a summer box. Every year, one was prepared. The class photograph went inside. A piece of chalk, a page from the attendance register, one drawing, and a short note about the year. Mrs. Sophia placed the photograph inside, then the chalk, then the attendance page. Elena held her drawing. She looked at it once more. The little school beneath the olive tree. She placed it inside. That was the school year, reduced to a few small things. Behind the books were three other boxes, each year resting quiet beside the next. Elena imagined all the children who had once filled those classrooms, children who had grown older, moved away, gone to different schools. Perhaps some had forgotten the rooms entirely. Perhaps others still remembered. She placed the new box beside the others. Elena stood there for a moment. The classroom looked different now, but without children, they seemed almost too large. Elena remembered sitting there during winter, rainy mornings, cold hands, spring afternoons, the smell of pencil shavings, someone always dropping a book, someone always asking for an extra sheet of paper. The room looked warmer without the artificial light. They left the classroom. Every other room was empty too, sunlight stretching across the floor. But this school still smelled of chalk and old wood. Perhaps that was why the last afternoon felt so different. It belonged partly to the present and partly to the something older. They stepped outside. The courtyard was almost dry, dropped remains on the leaves. Elena stood beside the school gate. Mrs. Sophia locked the main door. For a moment, Elena looked back. The school seemed to be sleeping already. It would stay quiet for weeks. When September arrived, the doors would open again. But everyone who returned would be a little older. Perhaps that was the strange thing about schools. Elena adjusted the strap of her blue school bag. The road curved between olive trees. Drops fell occasionally from the leaves. The sea appeared between the branches. Warm bread drifted into the street. A scooter moved past. Somewhere below, a church bell sounded. Elena walked slowly. There was no reason to hurry. Tomorrow, she could sleep late. She could go to the beach. She could read. She could do nothing at all. At home, her school bag was left beside the door. A cold glass of lemonade waited on the balcony. The breeze moved across her face. The sea shimmered beyond the rooftops. For a while, she did nothing. She simply listened. The school seemed so far now, but she could still remember the classroom. And somehow, she knew she would remember this afternoon, not because anything extraordinary had happened, but because nothing had. It had simply been the last ordinary afternoon before everything changed. The school had gone to sleep for summer. Elena lay on her bed. The window remained open. Their sound was softened now. The village was beginning to settle. A distant scooter, a church bell, then even that disappeared. Only the breeze remained. High above the sea, behind a locked blue door, the little school rested beneath the evening sky. For the next few weeks, no children would fill its corridors, no chalk would touch the blackboard. It would simply wait. And when September came, the door would open again. The same old bell would ring. But tonight, the school belonged to summer, and Elena, somewhere below the hills, was already falling asleep. The last afternoon was over. The long holiday had begun, and there was nowhere else she needed to be.